Hey YouTube, so today I'm going to be talking about creating my enclosures for my Ardentiellas, or what used to be called the Murnellas, or I called them Marus, now I call them Ardents. So those are things like the ember bees, the Scarlets, pink Lambos, all of those isopods. This is the enclosure that this is how I've created my enclosures for their setup. So they're not really dwellers. They don't dwell, like they don't dig, they don't burrow. That's what I should be saying. They don't really burrow, so I don't have a too deep of a substrate. To be honest, I could have gone a little bit deeper, especially in these sections. So I'll probably buffer this a little bit, like take the moss out, put a little bit more substrate in there. But it's about an inch at the thickest point, so over here. And then I have moss. I don't have any websites that I get this stuff. It's just been people I've found on Facebook. So I will give you the names of some people who sell substrate and some people who sell moss that you can go check out. George's Beetles is one substrate person. Isopod Anonymous is another person I get substrate from. Moss, also Isopod Anonymous, and then Catherine. I would forget what her store name is. But yeah, there's a few others, so I'll have their names that you can go check out down below because I don't think they have websites to link. But anyway, so that's a substrate, and then the moss. I do you want it pretty humid, so I have about half of this moss, half of it not moss, and there's actually parts of this that are not moss. It's kind of sparse. Some of this moss is stuff I collected outside, but if you always collect stuff outside, make sure to soak it in distilled water and make sure it's submerged for at least 24 hours. Don't want to do too much longer, and always make sure it's distilled. I've found when I didn't do distilled, first of all, there's like chlorine and other things that could be bad to soak into the things you're giving to your isopods, but it also just smells a lot weirder. So I've noticed that the smell actually is nicer, quote unquote nicer, when you use distilled water. I feel that it doesn't suck as much nutrients or green out when it's soaking, and once again, you don't want to soak it for too long because then you're kind of stewing away the important things, the nutrients, if you will, for the isopods or microorganisms. So soak your items or buy your items from people that hopefully do this process. Some people say to freeze them. I don't freeze my stuff, and I've been fine. But yeah, so we have a layer of the substrate about an inch deep. We have leaves spread throughout, and then we have moss. So the moss is going to help keep the moisture up. And then like I said, I've just soaked these things. So then I just start kind of placing the items so that they can go up and get some elevation. I've also noticed, and I'll try to demonstrate this. Sorry. So I've also noticed that they really like hanging things. So a lot of isopods will, if we go in here, a lot of the isopods will like to hang on the bottom of this. No, I shouldn't say hang, but be on the bottom of this and eat away at microorganisms and then the bark or the wood. So they like these sort of overhangs, if you will. So I try to create a decent amount of those. They also there'll be a fair amount here once again because it's kind of hanging that will be on the bottom or in the corner eating away, and then they slowly make their way down. So I occasionally will move sticks so that if this stick was like this, let's say, I will occasionally move sticks, or that if I've placed it, forgive me, if I place it so that it's overhanging and they've eaten this way, then I'll flip the stick over so that they can start eating away at this side as well. So that's something I've noticed with the isopods, the Ardentiellas. But yeah, so that's pretty much what I do. I just create, setups. I place some cork bark in there so that they can have some hidey spaces. A lot of people that I've seen pictures that have, they'll do a flip of cork bark and see a lot of Ardentiellas there. Their enclosures don't really have all of this going on for the Ardentiellas, so they hang out here. But like when I do flips, I'll have some underneath these, but not nearly as much as like if I were to pick up one of these branches. Sorry for the focus. If I were to pick up one of these branches and like look at it, and I have, I guess, so much room compared to how many I have, and there's a ton of different places. If you check out some of my like my Ember Bee video, that there's so many different areas for them to be that they're not really hanging on the underside of the cork bark. But yeah, so this is what I do. I try to have crisscrossing so that they can go up and then go down or like connect. So, here's another. This isn't going to be what it actually is like. I'm just doing this for demonstration purposes. But yeah, so that way they can like cross over and then they can also go down. So you just want to kind of imagine yourself as like an isopod and like how cool it would be to explore around and making sure that you have lots of ways to get from one point to the other. And then, once again, this overhanging, like they eat away at this. So they'll probably really like this. So they're going to eat away at this. So that's pretty much how I create my enclosures. I might have another cork bark in another area that's smaller. So, over here, sorry. So like that. So they have some cork bark, and then I'll have some more leaves. A variety of different leaves as well is nice. I've found that most of my isopods don't really eat the magnolia too much. I feel like they're too hard. When I first looked up isopods, I saw that was a leaf that they eat. But my isopods don't really eat the magnolia leaves. So I mainly do these hardwood leaves, and I'll buy different leaves from different people to have a variety, like oak, white oak. I'm not a leaf expert, so I'm not going to lie and talk about any other leaves that I might know. But yeah, hardwood leaves, that's what you want. You want a variety. So there's, some leaves in here from one vendor, some leaves in here from another vendor. I'll get some other leaves that look small like this. And then I'll have a little bit of magnolia in there. But like I said, I feel like they don't really eat away at the magnolia leaves because they're just so hard. Like maybe when they break down over time. And then also, I forgot, I'll also do a little bit of rock. This is small. I'd probably put a little bit bigger of a rock. But, put some sort of rock up against here, and then maybe a rock, like a little rock on the base, so that I can use that rock, the flat rock that's at the base, as like a feeding tray. All right, so here we go. So here's a flat rock. So, this I will put in there, maybe like so, and that becomes now a feeding tray for them, like a natural feeding tray, if you will, to put on there. And I might also still use one of my feeding trays. Link to that down below. They're little isopods. Let me go grab one. All right, so there's one of my little feeding trays. Once again, link to those below. Easy Eddie's isopods selling them, but you can also just message me, I guess, and I can sell them to you as well. But I'll have that guy's little, so I'll still have that as a feeding tray as well, because the Ember Bee enclosure that I have, the rock is further down below, so I feel like it gets a lot messier. But I think, if I were to, and I probably will, place this up above the ground, it won't get as dirty. Not that that necessarily matters, because isopods eat dirt, but it's just, nice to have it be clean. So I'll throw a little tray in there. It also makes it nice to, have it congregate in one area. And if it starts to mold or whatever, because they don't eat it, it's easy to just take out, wash, put back in. So that's pretty much my setup. What I do for creating the enclosure, just imagine yourself as the isopod and having it be fun going to and fro. I'll also plant a plant because I guess planting a plant helps with oxygen flow, so it'll help create oxygen for this environment, and then it also helps with the dirt, the substrate. So if this is just what I've found out. If you plant a plant in your bins, then you probably don't have to switch out the substrate as often or at all, because the plant helps your substrate have continual food, so to speak. Yeah, so I'll probably also plant like a little plant and then watch it grow like I've done in my other enclosures. So that's what I have. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them down below. But hopefully this helped you. And then I guess, for the top, what do you do for the top, right? Because these don't come with a top. And you can also get these for half off. I feel like they have half off sales all the time. So this is like $12 for this. But what do you do for a top? I have a laser cutter, so I, measured this, and I laser cut the top, and I laser cut holes and do the mesh thing. But not everyone's gonna have access to a laser cutter. So you can get thin pieces of acrylic, cut it out yourself to size, and then drill holes, and then use vents like what people usually do for the enclosures that they get, the shoe boxes. They'll drill a hole in the plastic and then put those vents in. So you could just like get a thin piece of acrylic that you could cut yourself, and then drill a hole and then put the vents in so that you have vents on the top. That's one idea, I guess. I don't know. You're gonna have to get creative because they don't have tops for these. If you have any ideas, or if you've done anything and you don't have access to a laser cutter, drop down in the comment section so other people can see what you did. Because not everyone has access to a laser cutter. I realize that. There are enclosures that Eddie has used, and he is making a kit now, I believe, or going to make a kit for them that turns them into isopod enclosures. But the thing with those, and why I don't have them, is my shelf height is limited. And those, I think the smaller one of those is like 18 inches tall. And so that's too tall for me. So this is what I have. This is like maybe 10 inches tall. So this fits fine. Like another 8 inches, that would not fit where I have these. And then, once again, check out my other videos that I have on my enclosures. You'll see kind of my lighting setup, because this is all living material that you want to continue to grow. Like you want the moss to continue to grow and produce organisms. The wood to rot. So you always want to keep it kind of moist. Like I'll spray this wood to help it continue to rot with a mist. And then, I obviously mist all the moss so that stays nice and moist. And the grow light then helps that continue to grow. So you need a grow light. You need to have, either be misting these, I would say daily, or every other day at the minimum. Every other day at the minimum, or every day, or create some sort of misting system. So you're gonna have to get creative. So I would say that Ardentiellas, while they're cool, people do, I guess, have them in bins, but everyone that I know that has had Ardentiellas have failed at them even after a few years, and they all said it's because their diet, and no one was doing mossy sticks. So this is the key, allegedly, according to everyone, that like all the breeders that I know that have Ardentiellas, have said this is the key. You need mossy sticks. you need, you can't just give them leaf litter and that's it. Like, they need more than just leaf litter and then just food. They like need this stuff. So, and I've been successful thus far. No one's died, and I have given some to some of my friends that raise isopods, and they've not had luck with them. Like, they forgot to keep it humid, and they skipped on misting it for like 5 days or something, and they came back and their Ardentiellas were no longer. So you need to keep it moist. You need to keep some sort of greenery in there. So you need to keep it moist, and you need greenery like moss sticks in there for their diet. Hopefully this video helped you, and let me know what questions you have. And thanks again for watching.